My name is Miranda Carter, a 32-year-old financial analyst from Boston who always believed family comes first. That's why I didn't hesitate when my younger sister Olivia needed help with her wedding. I paid $9,300 from my savings to give her the perfect day. But 2 weeks before the ceremony, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "You don't fit the vibe, Miranda. We're keeping it minimal." So I stopped paying. On her big day, the venue shut down. The cake never arrived, and guests watched it all collapse. Then my phone rang. It was Olivia, sobbing uncontrollably. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. Hit like and subscribe to hear how I learned that sometimes love means standing your ground, even against family. Growing up in suburban Massachusetts with Olivia was like having a constant sunshine and storm weather system in our home. For years my junior, my sister was everything I wasn't: creative, spontaneous, and effortlessly charming. While I calculated allowance down to the penny and planned my homework schedule weeks in advance, Olivia painted murals on her bedroom walls and convinced our parents that deadlines were merely suggestions. Our childhood home in Lexington was modest but comfortable, with Eleanor and Frederick Carter raising us with distinctly different approaches. Dad was the financial gatekeeper, meticulously tracking household expenses and lecturing us about compound interest before we could multiply double digits. Mom, meanwhile, encouraged our self-expression and often slipped Olivia extra cash for art supplies that weren't in the budget. Despite our differences, I loved my sister fiercely. When Alyssa Jenkins mocked Olivia's handmade clothes in 5th grade, I, a normally rule-abiding 9th grader, found myself in detention after accidentally spilling cafeteria spaghetti all over Alyssa's designer jeans. When Olivia struggled with algebra, I spent hours creating colorful worksheets that translated equations into the visual language she understood. "You're my safety net," Olivia once told me during one of our late-night talks. "Even when I'm flying all over the place, I know you'll catch me if I fall." I took that role seriously, perhaps too seriously. While Olivia painted and dreamed, I planned and achieved. I earned scholarships to Northeastern University, working part-time at a local bank throughout college. My accounting professors praised my attention to detail, and I graduated summa cum laude before landing an entry-level position at Meridian Financial Group. Meanwhile, Olivia attended Rhode Island School of Design on a partial scholarship, supplemented by student loans and our parents' contributions. Her paintings were beautiful, vibrant explosions of color that captured emotion in ways I could never articulate with words. But after graduation, the reality of art as a career hit hard. She bounced between temp jobs, eventually settling as an assistant at the Newberry Street Gallery, where she earned just enough to share a cramped apartment in Somerville with 2 other aspiring artists. By the time I was 29, I had established myself at Meridian, earning promotions and building a respectable investment portfolio. I had been dating Noah Richards, a software developer with a pragmatic mindset similar to mine, for 3 years. We had discussions about marriage, but agreed to wait until we could afford the down payment on a condo. We were saving diligently, with spreadsheets tracking our progress toward the 20% down payment we'd need in Boston's expensive market. Then came Garrett Lewis. Olivia met him at a gallery opening where his indie band was performing. He had tousled brown hair, an easy smile, and a guitar case covered in stickers from venues across the country. Their connection was immediate and intense. Within 3 months, Olivia had moved into his apartment in Jamaica Plain. "He understands my soul, Miranda," she gushed over brunch at our favorite cafe. "He doesn't just see my art, he sees me." I smiled and nodded, keeping my reservations to myself. Garrett was charming and clearly adored my sister, but his career as a musician seemed as financially unstable as Olivia's artistic pursuits. When they invited me to dinner, Garrett would often mention big opportunities and industry connections that never seemed to materialize into actual income. The proposal came after they'd dated for 18 months. Garrett arranged for Olivia to accidentally discover one of her paintings displayed in a small gallery, with a ring box positioned in front of it. It was romantic and thoughtful, but the diamond was surprisingly large for someone who frequently asked to split the check at restaurants. When I cautiously inquired about wedding plans over sister movie night, Olivia's eyes lit up as she described a bohemian celebration in a renovated barn with fairy lights, food trucks, and a dance floor under the stars. I nodded along, mentally calculating costs that clearly exceeded what she and Garrett could afford on their combined incomes. "Have you set a budget?" I asked gently, passing her the popcorn. Olivia's smile faltered slightly. "We're figuring it out. Garrett says we shouldn't compromise on the important day of our lives." I bit my tongue to avoid pointing out that compromise was precisely what adult life required. Instead, I suggested we look at some wedding planning websites together, just for fun. As we scrolled through venue options and catering packages, I watched reality slowly dawn on my sister's face. Even a modest wedding would cost far more than she had imagined. "Maybe we could just elope," she whispered, but the disappointment in her voice was unmistakable. That night, lying in bed beside a sleeping Noah, I stared at the ceiling and thought about Olivia's dreams versus her reality. My sister had always lived in a world slightly removed from practical concerns, with me serving as her tether to financial reality. But this time, her disappointment felt different, heavier, more consequential. This wasn't about art supplies or concert tickets. This was about the day she had been imagining since we played wedding with our stuffed animals as children. I closed my eyes, already knowing what I was going to do. The following Saturday, Olivia and I met at Riverside Coffee, our favorite spot halfway between our apartments. I arrived early, securing the corner table by the window that we preferred. When Olivia rushed in 15 minutes late, her cheeks flushed from the cold, I already had her usual hazelnut latte with almond milk waiting. Sorry, she said, unwinding her scarf. The red line was a disaster this morning. I smiled, used to her perpetual lateness. How's the wedding planning going? Her bright expression clouded. She stirred her latte absently, creating swirls in the foam. Garrett and I looked at a few places yesterday. Everything decent is either booked 18 months out or costs more than my annual salary. She attempted a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Maybe we should just get married at City Hall and call it a day. I watched my sister's fingers tremble slightly around her mug. Behind her flippant tone lay genuine disappointment. What if I could help? I heard myself say. Olivia glanced up. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. Noah and I have been saving for a down payment. We've got about $15,000 set aside. I hadn't discussed this with Noah yet, but I knew he would understand. I could lend you some of it. Not all of it, but enough to help with the important things. Olivia's eyes widened. Miranda, no. That's your future house. It's just a delay. You can pay me back slowly, no interest. I pulled out my phone calculator. If you set aside $200 a month, we could work out a reasonable timeline. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. You would do that for me? Of course I would. You're my sister. That evening, I broached the subject with Noah as we prepared dinner in our apartment. I chopped vegetables while he stirred pasta sauce, explaining my conversation with Olivia. I was thinking we could lend them $10,000, I concluded. It would push our timeline back, but we'd still be on track to buy within 3 years. Noah was quiet for a moment, methodically stirring the sauce. Are you sure they'll pay it back? Olivia's not great with money, but she wouldn't let me down on something this important. I insisted. Plus, I'll create a payment plan for them. Clear expectations. Noah set down the wooden spoon and turned to face me. Miranda, I know how much you care about your sister, and I'm not against helping her. But $10,000 is a lot of money. I know, I admitted. But it's her wedding. It's once in a lifetime. Noah's expression softened. Okay. If this is important to you, it's important to me. But let's set some ground rules. A firm budget, written agreement, and regular check-ins on the expenses. The following weekend, Olivia and Garrett came to our apartment for dinner. After Noah's homemade lasagna, I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet I'd created. So, we can provide $10,000 toward your wedding, I explained, turning the screen so they could see. I've broken down suggested allocations based on typical wedding budgets. Garrett leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. This is incredibly generous, Miranda. Seriously. Olivia squeezed my hand across the table. We'll stick to this budget, I promise. And we'll pay back every penny. We spent the next 2 hours refining the budget. The largest allocations went to venue, catering, and photography, with smaller amounts for attire, flowers, and music. I created a shared document with payment timelines and vendor deadlines. The following week, we visited the Rosewood Community Center in neighboring Arlington. With its warm wood interior, large windows overlooking a garden, and reasonable rental fee of $2,000, it seemed perfect. Olivia twirled in the empty space, envisioning tables and a dance floor. It's not a barn with fairy lights, she admitted, but it has character. I can work with this. When I transferred the $2,000 deposit to the venue coordinator, Stanley Bennett, I felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. My savings account balance, which had been growing steadily for 2 years, suddenly looked smaller. But Olivia's joy as she signed the contract made it worthwhile. Our parents had mixed reactions to my financial involvement. Mom was relieved that Olivia would have a proper wedding but worried about my delayed home purchase. Dad was more direct. You're enabling her, Miranda, he said during Sunday dinner at their house. Olivia needs to learn to live within her means. It's a loan, Dad, not a gift, I replied, though I wondered privately if I was indeed enabling my sister's financial dependence. For the next few weeks, Olivia and I met regularly to plan. We spent evenings poring over wedding magazines, pinning ideas to a shared online board, and contacting vendors. These sessions reminded me of our childhood, staying up late whispering plans and secrets. Despite the financial strain, I treasured these moments reconnecting with my sister. You're the best maid of honor ever, Olivia declared one night as we addressed save-the-date cards at my dining table. I couldn't do this without you. I smiled, watching her meticulous handwriting on each envelope. Maybe Dad was wrong. Maybe this was exactly what Olivia needed. Not just financial support, but a project we could work on together, strengthening our bond while helping her create beautiful memories. As April turned to May, with the October wedding date approaching, I continued making payments. $1,500 for the photographer, Blake Davidson, $800 for the DJ, Marcus Wilson, $1,200 for the florist, Violet's Blooms. Each transfer from my account was accompanied by a small pang of anxiety, but I reminded myself that this was temporary. Once the wedding was over, Olivia and Garrett would begin repaying the loan, and Noah and I would resume our path toward homeownership. But as spring blossomed into summer, subtle changes began to surface in my sister's approach to her wedding. Changes that would eventually transform our relationship in ways I never anticipated. The first sign that something was shifting came in early June, when Olivia invited me to meet her for lunch at an upscale bistro I knew she couldn't afford. When I arrived, she was already seated at a window table with a woman I'd never met, tall, elegantly dressed, with a sleek bob and statement jewelry. Miranda, this is Vanessa Palmer, Olivia said, her voice carrying an unfamiliar note of deference. We met at the Harrington Gallery opening last month. She's a curator for the Beacon Hill collection. Vanessa extended a manicured hand. Olivia's told me so much about you, and about this charming little wedding you're planning. Something about her tone, the subtle emphasis on little, made me instantly wary. Nevertheless, I smiled politely as I took my seat. Vanessa has been giving me the most amazing advice, Olivia continued, her eyes bright with excitement. She planned her sister's wedding at the Gardner Museum last year. Over $28 salads that Olivia insisted on paying for, raising immediate questions about this sudden discretionary income. Vanessa gently but persistently dismantled many of the wedding plans we'd already made. The Rosewood Community Center is quaint, she said, dabbing her lips with a napkin. But have you considered the Harrington Hotel? Their ballroom has been featured in Boston weddings 3 times this year. I cleared my throat. We've already put a deposit on the community center. It fits perfectly within our budget. Vanessa smiled as if I'd said something amusing. Budgets are guidelines, not prisons. There's always room for adjustments when it comes to once-in-a-lifetime events. Throughout lunch, I watched Olivia nodding along to Vanessa's suggestions: upgraded linens, artisanal cocktails, live music instead of a DJ. Each addition would cost hundreds, if not thousands, more than what we'd planned. 2 days later, Olivia texted asking me to meet her at the Harrington Hotel. When I arrived, she was already touring the grand ballroom with events coordinator Sylvia Reeves, whose tailored suit and professional demeanor made Stanley from the community center seem amateur by comparison. "Isn't it magnificent?" Olivia whispered, gesturing to the crystal chandeliers and marble columns. "We could have the ceremony in front of those windows with the city skyline behind us." My stomach tightened. "Olivia, what's the rental fee for this place?" Sylvia smiled. "For the ballroom package, including basic setup and breakdown, we're looking at $5,500 for a Saturday in October." I nearly choked. That was $3,500 more than the community center. "We can't afford this," I whispered to Olivia as Sylvia discreetly stepped away. "Vanessa knows the manager," Olivia replied, her eyes pleading. "She says he might waive some fees since it's off-season. And think about the photos, Miranda. They'd be spectacular." I should have held firm. Instead, I heard myself asking Sylvia about deposit requirements and availability for October 15th. The rational part of my brain screamed in protest as I wrote a check for $3,500 while Olivia signed the contract. I called Stanley that evening to cancel our reservation at the community center, forfeiting the $2,000 deposit. The venue change triggered a cascade of upgrades. Our carefully selected buffet menu from local caterer Sunshine Provisions was deemed too casual for the elegant ballroom. Instead, Olivia and Vanessa arranged a tasting at Bergman's Fine Dining, where the 5-course meal would cost $120 per person, nearly triple our original budget. "But they're including a champagne toast and wine pairings," Olivia explained when I expressed concern. "Vanessa says it's actually a bargain for what we're getting." I transferred another $1,800 for the catering deposit, my savings dwindling with each enhancement to the wedding. The dress shopping expedition was perhaps the most painful shift. We'd planned to visit Bella's Bridal, a moderately priced boutique where I'd made an appointment weeks in advance. But the day before, Olivia called to change plans. "Vanessa got me an appointment at Elise Atelier," she said breathlessly. "They don't usually take new clients this close to the date, but she knows the designer." At Elise Atelier, I watched from a velvet settee as Vanessa and the boutique owner, Natalie Winters, brought Olivia gown after gown, each more elaborate than the last. My input was neither sought nor acknowledged. When Olivia emerged in a hand-beaded creation with a cathedral train, Vanessa clasped her hands. "It's perfect. Absolutely perfect." The price tag, $4,200. Our original dress budget, $1,500. "I can put down a deposit today," I offered weakly, calculating how I'd cover the remainder. "Actually," Olivia said, not quite meeting my eyes, "Vanessa already handled the deposit as an early wedding gift. We just need the balance in 2 weeks." I felt a strange mixture of relief and displacement. While grateful for the financial assistance, I couldn't help feeling that my role was being diminished with each planning decision. At a family dinner in late July, these concerns bubbled to the surface when Mom asked about wedding favors. "We're doing custom macarons from that French pâtisserie on Newberry Street," Olivia announced. "They'll match our new color scheme." "New color scheme?" I echoed. We'd originally decided on dusty blue and silver, colors that would work beautifully with the community center's neutral palette. "Emerald and gold," Olivia replied. "Vanessa thinks it's more sophisticated for an October wedding at the Harrington." Dad set down his fork. "Who exactly is this Vanessa person?" "She seems to have quite a lot of influence over this wedding I thought Miranda was funding." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. "Miranda's been incredibly generous," Olivia said finally. "But Vanessa has connections and experience that are helping us elevate the whole event." "Elevate it beyond what we can afford," I said quietly. Olivia's expression hardened slightly. "We're making it work." Some things are worth stretching for. That night, Noah found me at our kitchen table, surrounded by wedding invoices and my decimated budget spreadsheet. "This is getting out of control," he said gently, placing a hand on my shoulder. "We're up to $9,300 already, with major expenses still unpaid." I nodded miserably. Every time I try to talk to Olivia about costs, she changes the subject or tells me Vanessa is handling it. But then the vendors call me for payments. "You need to have a serious conversation with her," Noah urged. "Set clear boundaries before this gets worse." I tried. For 2 weeks, I attempted to schedule a meeting with Olivia to discuss finances. Each time, she had an excuse. She was meeting Vanessa to look at tablescapes. She and Garrett were sampling wedding cakes. She had a migraine and needed to rest. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed constantly with text messages from vendors awaiting payment. "Sylvia from the Harrington. Reminder that your final venue payment of $2,500 is due by September 15th. Bergman's Fine Dining. Balance of $2,200 required to finalize menu and staffing. Brenda from Sweet Dreams Bakery. Wedding cake design approved. Deposit of $800 needed to secure your date." These messages went unanswered as I struggled to reconcile my dwindling finances with Olivia's expanding vision. By late August, I had spent $9,300, nearly the entire amount I'd promised, with several major expenses still outstanding. Something had to give. I just never imagined it would be my relationship with my sister. The breaking point came on a warm September evening, exactly 1 month before the wedding. Olivia had finally agreed to meet to discuss a few details, suggesting an upscale restaurant in Back Bay where the prix-fixe menu started at $85 per person. I arrived to find not just Olivia but Vanessa, Garrett, and my parents already seated at a round table draped in crisp white linen. "There she is," Mom called, waving me over. We were just looking at the final seating chart. I slipped into the empty chair between Dad and Garrett, noticing the elaborate table diagram displayed on Vanessa's tablet. My father looked uncomfortable in this lavish setting, tugging occasionally at his collar as he sipped water. "Sorry I'm late," I said. "Meeting ran long at work." "No worries," Olivia replied breezily. "Vanessa's been walking us through the day of timeline. It's going to be magical." Throughout the appetizer course, I listened as Vanessa detailed plans for custom lighting installations, a string quartet for the ceremony, and a vintage Rolls-Royce for the couple's exit. Each new element represented hundreds or thousands of dollars not accounted for in our original budget. Finally, as servers cleared our plates, I spoke up. "Olivia, could we discuss the outstanding vendor payments? There are several large balances coming due." A brief silence fell over the table. Olivia and Vanessa exchanged a glance. "Actually, Miranda," Olivia said, setting down her wine glass, "that's something I wanted to talk to you about. We've been reevaluating some aspects of the wedding party." "Oh!" I reached for my water, suddenly uneasy. "Vanessa has agreed to be my maid of honor," Olivia continued, not quite meeting my eyes. "She understands the aesthetic we're going for, and she's helped coordinate so many events like this." The water glass froze halfway to my lips. "You're replacing me as maid of honor?" "Not replacing," Olivia said quickly. "Just restructuring. You'll still be a bridesmaid, of course." "Of course," Vanessa echoed with a sympathetic smile that didn't reach her eyes. I set down my glass carefully, aware of my parents watching this exchange. "May I ask why?" "I thought we were planning this together." Olivia fidgeted with her napkin. "It's nothing personal. It's just that, well, Vanessa suggested we keep the aesthetic consistent and—" "What Olivia is trying to say," Vanessa interjected smoothly, "is that we're creating a very specific visual experience. The bridesmaids we've selected all have a certain look that complements the overall design concept." "A certain look," I repeated slowly. "You don't quite fit the vibe we're going for," Olivia finally blurted out. "We're keeping it minimal, refined. Your style is more practical," I supplied, feeling heat rise in my cheeks. "Traditional," Vanessa offered diplomatically. I looked at Garrett, who suddenly seemed fascinated by his fork. My father cleared his throat, but said nothing. My mother reached across the table to pat my hand. Honey, it's not a big deal. You'll still be part of the celebration. Part of the celebration? I echoed. After I've paid $9,300 for it. The table went silent. Miranda, Olivia began, her voice tight, I know you've contributed financially and we're grateful. But this is my wedding, and I need to make decisions that feel right for the vision Vanessa and I have created. The vision you and Vanessa created, I repeated. What happened to the wedding we planned together? The one within our actual budget. Plans evolve, Vanessa said with a dismissive wave. Olivia deserves the best on her special day. I turned to face my sister directly. Olivia, I've spent nearly $10,000 helping you create your dream wedding. Money that was meant for my future with Noah. And now you're telling me I don't even fit the vibe of the event I'm paying for. You're being dramatic, Olivia snapped. It's just a title change. It's not just a title change, I replied, my voice shaking slightly. It's weeks of being sidelined, ignored, and now publicly demoted. All while the invoices keep coming to me. My mother intervened, her voice soothing. Girls, let's not make a scene. We can work this out. Dad finally spoke up, his expression pained. Olivia, I think your sister has a point. She's made a significant investment in this wedding. An investment she offered freely, Olivia countered. No one forced her to help. True, I acknowledged, pushing back my chair. And no one is forcing me to continue helping, either. I stood, grabbing my purse from the back of the chair. Miranda, don't leave like this, Mom pleaded. I'm sorry, but I need some air. Enjoy your dinner. I'm sure it's already on my tab anyway. I walked out of the restaurant, tears blurring my vision as I fumbled for my car keys. Once inside my vehicle, I let the tears flow freely, hands gripping the steering wheel as sobs racked my body. When my phone rang, Noah's face appeared on the screen. Hey, I answered, trying to steady my voice. How's the meeting going? He asked. It's over. I've been replaced as maid of honor because I don't fit the vibe they're going for.
What?
Are you serious? Completely. Apparently, my style is too traditional for their minimal, refined aesthetic. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Where are you now? Noah asked, concern evident. In my car outside the restaurant. I couldn't stay there any longer. Come home, he said gently. We'll figure this out together. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and windshield wipers clearing my tears. By the time I reached our apartment, my sadness had crystallized into something harder, a resolve I hadn't felt before. That night, as Noah and I talked through everything, my phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from family. Mom, please call me, honey. We need to talk about this. Dad, your sister was out of line. Let's discuss tomorrow. Olivia, you're overreacting. Call me when you've calmed down. Even Garrett, hey Miranda, really sorry about tonight. Olivia's just stressed. She still wants you there. I silenced my phone and turned to Noah. I'm done, I said simply. I can't give them any more money. Are you sure? He asked, though I could see relief in his eyes. It's your decision, but I'll support whatever you choose. I'm sure. This has gone too far. The next morning, I drafted a clear, unemotional email to Olivia. Dear Olivia, after careful consideration, I need to inform you that I will not be making any further financial contributions to your wedding. The $9,300 already provided will be my complete contribution. Outstanding balances with the Harrington, Bergman's Fine Dining, Sweet Dreams Bakery, and other vendors will need to be covered by alternative means. I wish you and Garrett happiness in your marriage. Miranda. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then blocked Olivia's number on my phone. I needed space to process my emotions without constant interruptions. The reaction was swift and overwhelming. My mother called repeatedly until I answered, her voice tearful as she begged me to reconsider. Olivia made a mistake, but you can't abandon her wedding now. Everything's been planned around that money. I'm not abandoning her wedding, I replied calmly. I'm establishing boundaries around my financial contribution, which has been taken for granted. My father, surprisingly, was more understanding. It's your money, Miranda. You have every right to decide how it's spent. Olivia needs to learn there are consequences to her actions. Garrett left voicemails with increasing desperation, explaining that they didn't have the funds to cover the remaining balances. Even Vanessa tried reaching out through email, her tone suddenly conciliatory as she suggested we collaborate on solutions that honor both Olivia's vision and your generosity. Throughout this barrage, I focused on self-care. I returned to my long-neglected yoga practice, started reading novels again instead of wedding blogs, and spent a weekend at a seaside bed and breakfast with Noah, rediscovering the joy of planning our own future. The final confrontation came when my mother appeared at my apartment unannounced, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. "Olivia's devastated," she said, pacing my living room. "The wedding is falling apart. Vendors are threatening to cancel without final payments." "I'm sorry to hear that," I replied, maintaining my composure. "But those payments were never my responsibility. They're the result of choices Olivia made after pushing me aside." "She's your sister," Mom insisted. "Family helps family." Yes, I agreed. Family helps family. Family doesn't exploit, exclude, or demean family. "She made a mistake," Mom said, her voice breaking. "Can't you forgive her?" "This isn't about forgiveness, Mom. It's about boundaries. I forgive Olivia, but that doesn't mean I have to keep financing decisions I'm not part of." Mom left without resolving anything, but as I closed the door behind her, I felt stronger than I had in months. For perhaps the first time in our relationship, I had refused to be Olivia's safety net when she jumped without looking. The 2 weeks leading up to Olivia's wedding date were strangely peaceful for me. Having made my decision, I felt liberated from the constant anxiety of wedding expenses and family drama. Noah commented that I seemed more like myself than I had in months. "I didn't realize how much this was weighing on you until it stopped," he said one evening as we cooked dinner together in our apartment. "I think I've been Olivia's financial and emotional crutch for so long that I forgot what it feels like to prioritize myself," I admitted, chopping vegetables with renewed energy. My phone still lit up occasionally with wedding-related calls. Sylvia from the Harrington was particularly persistent, leaving voicemails about the venue's final payment deadline. "Miss Carter, we must receive the outstanding balance of $2,500 by the end of this week to confirm your sister's reservation. Please call us back urgently." I declined these calls with a swipe of my finger, no longer feeling responsible for solving these problems. They were the natural consequences of decisions made without my input or consent. My cousin Rebecca, who remained close to both Olivia and me, provided occasional updates. "It's chaos," she reported during our weekly coffee meetup. "Olivia and Garrett are scrambling to find the money. They've asked family members for loans, but after hearing what happened with you, everyone's hesitant." "What about Vanessa?" I asked, stirring my latte. "Isn't she helping with her connections and experience?" Rebecca rolled her eyes. "Vanessa's great at suggesting expensive options, but not so great at paying for them. Apparently, she told Olivia that handling finances isn't her area of expertise." I nodded, unsurprised. "And my parents?" "Uncle Frederick is refusing to bail them out. He says it's a lesson in responsibility. Aunt Eleanor's been slipping Olivia small amounts, but nothing close to what they need." I processed this information with a complex mixture of emotions. There was vindication, certainly a sense that justice was being served. But there was also genuine sadness for my sister, whose special day was unraveling due to poor choices and misplaced priorities. 1 week before the wedding, I unexpectedly encountered Olivia at our parents' house. I had stopped by to drop off a birthday gift for Dad, assuming everyone would be out. Instead, I found Olivia at the dining table, surrounded by papers and looking utterly exhausted. She glanced up when I entered, her eyes widening in surprise. Neither of us spoke for a moment. "I was just leaving," I said, placing Dad's gift on the sideboard. "Miranda, wait." Olivia's voice was smaller than I'd heard it in years. "Can we talk?" I hesitated, then took a seat across from her. Up close, I could see the dark circles under her eyes, the bitten nails, the tension in her shoulders. "The venue is threatening to cancel," she said without preamble. "We're short on the final payment, and they've given us until tomorrow." I nodded but didn't offer a solution. "Bergman's is demanding their balance too. And the cake." She trailed off, running a hand through her unkempt hair. "It's all falling apart." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, meaning it despite everything. Olivia looked at me directly for the first time. "I keep thinking you'll change your mind. That you'll swoop in and fix everything like you always do." "Not this time, Olivia." "Why not?" There was a hint of the old entitlement in her voice. "It's just money. You have it." "It's not just money," I replied calmly. "It's respect. It's appreciation. It's inclusion in decisions about funds I'm providing. You and Vanessa decided I didn't fit your vision, remember?" She had the grace to look ashamed. "I was caught up in everything. Vanessa made it all sound so perfect, so important." "Where is Vanessa now?" I asked. Olivia's laugh was hollow. "She's suddenly very busy with other projects. Hasn't returned my calls in 3 days." I wasn't surprised. People who encourage financial irresponsibility rarely stick around for the fallout. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "I don't know," she admitted. "Garrett's parents might help with the venue, but they can't cover everything. We might have to cancel some elements or—" She couldn't finish the sentence. As I left our parents' house that day, I felt a renewed wave of guilt. Was I being too harsh? Should I step in one more time to save my sister's wedding? But then I remembered Noah, our delayed home purchase, and the dismissive way Olivia and Vanessa had treated me despite my generosity. I remembered my own worth. That evening, Dad called unexpectedly. Our relationship had always been more distant than my bond with Mom, so his call surprised me. "Your sister's in quite a state," he said without greeting. "I know. Your mother thinks you should help her." I waited, bracing for pressure. "I disagree," he continued, surprising me. "Olivia made her bed with this Vanessa person. Now she needs to lie in it." "That's not what I expected you to say," I admitted. "I've enabled her enough over the years," he sighed. "We both have. Sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their choices." His words echoed my own thoughts so precisely that I felt tears spring to my eyes. "Thanks, Dad." The weekend before the wedding, Noah suggested we take a trip to Cape Cod to avoid the family drama. I considered it but ultimately declined. "I need to be here," I explained. "Not to rescue Olivia, but to be available if things truly fall apart. It's complicated. I'm standing my ground, but I still care what happens to her." Noah hugged me. "That's why I love you. Your big heart has room for boundaries and compassion at the same time." As the wedding date approached, reports from various family members painted a picture of mounting disaster. Garrett's parents had provided enough to secure a scaled-down package at the Harrington, but the catering remained in jeopardy. The cake order had been canceled due to non-payment. The photographer was threatening to withdraw without his final installment. The night before the wedding, my phone lit up with messages from various family members. "Mom, please reconsider Miranda. It's not too late to help. Dad, standing firm with you, but be prepared for fallout tomorrow. Rebecca, fair warning, and Eleanor is telling everyone you abandoned Olivia. I defended you. Cousin Tyler, is it true the wedding might not happen? Family betting pool is forming. Odds currently 3:1 against." I silenced my phone and went through my evening routine. Yoga, chamomile tea, reading a few chapters of my novel. As I prepared for bed, I felt strangely calm. Whatever happened tomorrow was the result of choices, Olivia's, Vanessa's, and mine. I was at peace with my part in the story. October 15th dawned bright and clear. Perfect weather for a wedding. I woke early, my first thought not of the ceremony, but of Olivia. Despite everything, she was still my sister, and this was supposed to be her special day. I made coffee and checked my phone. A text from Rebecca had arrived at 6:42 a.m. "Something weird is happening at the venue. Security isn't letting anyone in. Call me." I felt a twinge of concern, but resisted the urge to call immediately. This was no longer my problem to solve. By 9:30 a.m., more messages had accumulated. Rebecca. Update. The Harrington manager is demanding full payment before unlocking the ballroom. Garrett's dad is arguing with him. Mom. The venue is a disaster. Where are you? Cousin Emily. Did you hear what's happening? Guests are standing outside the hotel confused. At 10:15 a.m., my mother called. I answered after several rings. Miranda, it's catastrophic, she said, her voice tight with stress. The venue manager says their final payment was declined yesterday. He's refusing to open the ballroom or allow setup until they pay in full. The ceremony is supposed to start in less than 2 hours. What about Garrett's parents? I asked. I thought they were helping. They covered part of it, but there was a miscommunication about the balance. The manager is demanding another $1,200 they don't have. She paused, and I knew what was coming. Could you? Mom. I interrupted gently. I've made my position clear. But the guests are already arriving. People have flown in from across the country. I closed my eyes, picturing the scene. Confused relatives in formal wear, Olivia in her expensive dress with nowhere to wear it, my parents trying to manage the crisis.
I'm sorry, Mum.
This situation wasn't my creation. After hanging up, I refreshed my social media feeds to find them filling with oblique references to wedding drama. Olivia's college roommate had posted. Awkward doesn't begin to describe this. Standing outside a locked venue while the bride is crying in a hotel room upstairs. #wedding fail. By 11:30 a.m., Rebecca called with another update. They've moved everything to the hotel restaurant's private dining room, she reported. It's about a third the size of the ballroom and already set up for another event tonight, so they can only have it until 4 p.m. The original ceremony time has been pushed back to noon. What about the catering? I asked. Bogman's refused to deliver without payment. Garrett's mom is ordering party platters from a nearby deli. I winced, imagining Olivia's reaction to replacing her 5-course gourmet meal with sandwich trays. And the cake never materialized. Someone's making an emergency run to Whole Foods for whatever they can find in the bakery section. As noon approached, my phone buzzed constantly. Family members reported that the ceremony had been delayed again due to logistical issues. Guests were becoming restless, with some leaving to find lunch elsewhere, unsure if they should return. At 12:45 p.m., my father called. It's a complete fiasco, he said, sounding genuinely sad rather than angry. The hotel staff is unsympathetic since they warned Olivia about the payment deadline repeatedly. The DJ arrived but left when no one could pay his balance. Your mother's trying to connect someone's iPhone to portable speakers. I felt a heaviness in my chest. How's Olivia holding up? Not well, Dad admitted. She's locked herself in the bridal suite. Garrett's trying to console her through the door. By 1:30 p.m., social media provided a play-by-play of the unraveling celebration. Shortest wedding ceremony ever. No music, no flowers, bride in tears throughout. Reception is apparently finger foods in a room with another party's decorations. #awkward. Open bar became cash bar became no bar. Leaving to find a real drink. Good luck to the newlyweds. They're gonna need it. Did anyone else notice the photographer left halfway through? Said something about not working for free. Guess we're relying on iPhone photos. At 2:15 p.m., my phone displayed an incoming call from Olivia. My hand hovered over the screen, heart racing. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Miranda. Her voice was barely recognizable, choked with tears. Everything is ruined. Everything. I'm so sorry, Olivia, I said softly. The venue manager humiliated us in front of everyone. The food is deli platters. Half the guests have left already. She broke down completely, her sobs echoing through the phone. This was supposed to be the most beautiful day of my life. I closed my eyes, feeling her pain despite everything that had happened between us. I know. Vanessa hasn't even shown up, she continued bitterly. She's not answering texts or calls. Some maid of honor. I remained silent, letting her vent. I know I treated you terribly, she finally said, her voice steadying slightly. I got caught up in Vanessa's vision and forgot who was really there for me, who always has been. It wasn't just about being excluded from the wedding party, I explained gently. It was about being dismissed after making such a significant contribution, about watching my savings disappear into a vision I had no part in. I understand that now, she whispered. Too late, obviously. We were both quiet for a moment. What can I do? I finally asked. Nothing. It's too late to fix this. She paused. I just needed to hear your voice. After we hung up, I sat motionless on my couch, processing the conversation. Noah, who had been giving me space all morning, sat beside me and took my hand. How bad is it? He asked. Total disaster, I replied. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. He squeezed my hand. Do you want to help? I considered this carefully. Not financially. That ship has sailed. But maybe. I reached for my laptop and opened my payment app. After a moment's consideration, I sent $500 to Crestview Restaurant, an elegant establishment near the Harrington, with a note instructing them to prepare a private dinner for Olivia and Garrett that evening. Then I texted my sister. Check your email. Dinner reservations for 2 at Crestview tonight at 8 p.m. Private room. Everything prepaid. This day doesn't define your marriage. Her response came seconds later. Thank you. For everything. I'm so sorry. I also sent $20 gift cards to several relatives who had traveled far for the wedding, suggesting they enjoy dinner at a nearby restaurant since the reception had been cut short. These small gestures couldn't salvage the wedding, but they offered a touch of grace amid the chaos. As evening fell, I scrolled through the dwindling social media posts about the event. Well, that was something. Congrats to Olivia and Garrett. Marriage is about rolling with the punches, right? #wedding adventures. Shortest reception ever, but at least I got to wear this dress. Next time I'm just sending a gift card. #lesson learned. The last post came from Rebecca, who had remained at the hotel to support Olivia. Despite everything, they're married. Sometimes the roughest beginnings make for the strongest foundations. Wishing the newlyweds nothing but happiness from here forward. I liked her post, then set my phone aside. The wedding day was ending, disastrously, yes, but ending nonetheless. Tomorrow would bring a new chapter for all of us. For the first week after the wedding catastrophe, a heavy silence fell over our family. No calls from my parents, no messages from Olivia. Even extended family members seemed unsure how to address what had happened, their usual social media activity notably missing any wedding photos or congratulatory posts. I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction of quarterly reports and client meetings. Noah and I resumed our savings plan, the numbers in our account slowly climbing again, though still far from our original target. Then, exactly 8 days after the wedding, my father called. Can we meet for coffee? He asked, his voice carrying none of its usual certainty. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe halfway between our homes. When I arrived, Dad was already seated in a corner booth, looking older than I remembered. Thank you for coming, he said as I slid into the seat across from him. Of course. He wrapped his hands around his mug, gathering his thoughts. I owe you an apology, Miranda. I've been thinking about this situation constantly, and I realize now that I've failed both you and your sister in different ways. What do you mean? I asked. With Olivia, I was too lenient for too long. I allowed her to believe that someone would always solve her problems. He sighed deeply. And with you, I took advantage of your responsibility. I expected you to be the adult, even as a child. It wasn't fair to either of you. I felt a tightness in my throat. I never minded looking out for Olivia. I know, but it became an expectation rather than a choice. And when you finally set a boundary, we all acted surprised. We talked for nearly 2 hours, delving into family dynamics I'd never articulated aloud. Dad acknowledged that he'd often used me as a buffer between himself and Olivia's financial demands, allowing me to be the bad guy when limits needed setting. Your mother is beginning to see it too, he added. The wedding disaster was a wake-up call for all of us. 3 days later, I received a text from Olivia, the first direct communication since her tearful call on the wedding day. Can we talk? Just us.
No, Mom. No barret, no drama.
Please. We arranged to meet the following Saturday at a neutral location, a quiet cafe in Cambridge we'd both always liked. I arrived early, securing a corner table and ordering a chamomile tea to calm my nerves. When Olivia walked in, I barely recognized her. Gone was the fashionable outfit and perfect makeup I'd grown accustomed to during the wedding planning. Instead, she wore jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger, more like the sister I'd grown up with. "Hi," she said softly, sliding into the chair across from me. An awkward silence stretched between us until our drinks arrived, a momentary reprieve from the tension. "I don't know where to start," Olivia finally admitted. "Sorry seems inadequate." "Maybe start with what happened," I suggested, "after everything fell apart." She nodded, wrapping her hands around her mug. "After the disaster at the Harrington, Garrett and I went to the dinner you arranged. We barely spoke the entire meal. We were both in shock, I think." She paused, collecting herself. "The next day, we had a long talk about what went wrong and who was responsible. It was the most honest conversation we've ever had." "And Vanessa?" I couldn't help asking. Olivia's expression hardened, completely disappeared, blocked me on social media, won't return calls. Apparently, she's done this before. Latches onto someone planning a major event, encourages extravagant spending, then vanishes when things get complicated. "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "That must hurt." "Less than you'd think," Olivia replied thoughtfully. "It made me realize who's actually been there for me all along, even when I didn't deserve it." She met my eyes directly. "You've always been my safety net, Miranda, and I took advantage of that in the worst way." "Yes," I agreed simply. "You did." She nodded, accepting this without defense. Garrett and I had decided to have a small ceremony at the courthouse next month. Just family. No Instagram-worthy details, no influencer friends. Just a commitment to each other without the spectacle. "That sounds nice," I said cautiously. "We'd like you to be there," she added. "If you're willing." I considered this. "I'll think about it." We talked for 3 hours that day, addressing years of unspoken tensions and expectations. Olivia acknowledged her pattern of financial dependence and her tendency to value style over substance. I admitted that my role as protector had sometimes crossed into controlling territory, allowing resentment to build. "I'm working on it," she told me. "Garrett and I both are. We've created an actual budget for the first time. Dad's helping us learn to manage our finances responsibly." "That's a good start," I encouraged. By the time we parted, the ice between us had begun to thaw. Not completely, not yet. Trust would take longer to rebuild. But the foundation was there, cracked but not destroyed. 6 months later, our family dynamics had shifted in subtle but significant ways. Olivia and Garrett had indeed married in a simple courthouse ceremony, with both families present, including me. They'd moved to a smaller apartment to reduce expenses and created a payment plan to reimburse various family members who had contributed to the failed wedding. My parents had begun treating both daughters as adults rather than falling into our childhood roles. Mom no longer called me to fix Olivia's problems, and Dad had stopped using money as a measure of worth. As for Noah and I, we were engaged, a simple proposal on a Tuesday evening while cooking dinner together. No elaborate staging, no social media announcement, just a quiet commitment between two people who had weathered a storm together and emerged stronger. "I want a small wedding," I told him as we lay in bed discussing plans. "Something that reflects who we are, not who we think we should be." "Sounds perfect," he agreed, kissing my forehead. "And affordable." Olivia offered to help with planning. "Nothing fancy, I promise." And I accepted, setting clear boundaries from the start. Our relationship was healing, one honest conversation at a time. The most profound lesson from the wedding disaster wasn't about money, though financial boundaries had been the catalyst. It was about the nature of love itself, that true love, whether between sisters or partners, requires respect, honesty, and the courage to say no when necessary. Standing firm in my decision not to continue funding Olivia's wedding had been one of the hardest choices of my life. It cost me temporarily in family harmony and emotional well-being, but it forced all of us to confront patterns that had been damaging our relationships for years. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their choices. Sometimes a wedding has to fall apart for a relationship to become stronger. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with someone you love? Was it worth the temporary pain for the long-term growth of the relationship? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if you found value in my story, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's sometimes the most loving choice you can make. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, true love requires both compassion and boundaries.